These are 15 forgotten household chores that could take up entire days before modern appliances made life easier. From hauling 50 gallons of water for a single load of laundry to beating rugs until your arms ached, everyday housekeeping demanded planning, strength, and a tolerance for work that never really ended. Keeping house used to be physical labor from morning to night. Every simple task we handle now with a button or a plug once required setup, fuel, water, and time, and those routines shaped family schedules and even neighborhood life because big jobs often pulled in extra hands. Nothing carried the dread of Monday morning like laundry. People called it Blue Monday because washing clothes was not something you squeezed in between errands. It swallowed the day and often spilled into Tuesday. The work started the night before, sorting clothes, hauling water, and soaking items overnight in lye or homemade soap. Then Monday brought the real grind. A single wash could demand 50 gallons of water, about 400 pounds, hauled from the well or pump, heated over fires, and managed carefully all day. The washboard, invented around 1800, turned every shirt and sheet into a separate scrubbing job, followed by boiling and stirring with a washing dolly, wringing by hand until forearms burned, and rinsing again and again to remove soap. Many households also used a bluing agent to make whites look brighter, which meant yet another rinse. Even by 1920, only 8% of American families owned washing machines, so most households still relied on washboards, strongbacks, and sheer persistence. Women cleared their calendars because nothing else fit around laundry day, and the wealthy avoided it only because they could pay someone else to do it. Once the washing ended, ironing began, and it could feel even worse. Sad irons, sad meaning, heavy or solid, weighed 5 to 9 pounds and had to be heated on a stove or over coals. They stayed hot for only a few minutes, so households kept multiple irons heating while one was in use, creating a constant rotation between the stove and the ironing board. The technique mattered as much as strength. Too much pressure scorched fabric, too little left wrinkles, and judging temperature took experience, often tested with a quick touch of spit on the ironed surface. Henry W. Seeley filed the first patent for an electric iron in 1882, but most families lived for decades without that luxury, and the old method demanded time, stamina, and careful attention. Food storage brought its own daily chores. Before refrigerators, keeping food fresh meant managing an icebox, and that meant dealing with the iceman and the meltwater. Iceboxes were insulated wooden cabinets lined with tin or zinc, and families placed a card in the window to request 25, 50, 75, or 100 pounds of ice. Delivery was only the start. Melted water had to be drained or the kitchen would flood, and food placement became a constant strategy because cold zones shifted as the ice shrank. In 1927, General Electric introduced the first widely popular electric refrigerator for $520, about $7,000 in today's money. By 1944, about 85% of households had switched, but for a long stretch before that, the icebox was a daily responsibility. Cleaning carpets and rugs was another job that modern people rarely picture correctly. Before vacuum cleaners, the main method was hauling rugs outside and beating them, because that was how you forced dust and debris out of heavy textiles. Wall-to-wall carpeting was not common until after World War II. So many homes used area rugs that could be moved, and moved they were. Rugs were dragged outdoors, hung over porch railings or clotheslines, and beaten until clouds of dust stopped rising. The work never really ended, because dust did not vanish. It moved from rug to air to furniture and back again. Some households sprinkled damp tea leaves on rugs before sweeping to settle dust, and mechanical carpet sweepers arrived in the 1880s, but for many families, the beater remained the most reliable tool. The stove itself demanded constant upkeep. Cast iron stoves needed regular stove blacking, a polish containing graphite or plumbago, to keep the surface black and shiny. The coating helped protect against rust and supported efficient heating, but it wore away easily. Stove polish was not waterproof, so spills and moisture stripped it off, and normal heating burned it away over time. The job was messy, and doctors of the era worried about catarrhal and bronchial irritation from breathing particles that became airborne when heated. Yet a dull, rusty stove signaled poor housekeeping, so families kept polishing. Soap making was another chore that could swallow a day, and it usually happened only a couple of times a year. Families saved cooking grease and animal fat for months, then turned it into soap using lye made from wood ash and water. The chemistry was dangerous because lye could cause serious burns. Families used home tests to judge strength, including floating an egg in lye water to see if it bobbed correctly, and the zap test, tasting finished soap to feel a tingling sensation that meant the lye was still too strong. Procter & Gamble formed their partnership in 1837 and reached $1 million in annual sales by 1859. But store-bought soap stayed out of reach for many households for a long time, so home production continued well into the 1800s. Water itself was a chore because every drop used in the home meant carrying it from a well or a pump. There were no faucets, no instant hot water, and no pressure systems in many houses. The day began with filling buckets for cooking and washing, and the lifting continued until night. Children helped early, carrying smaller buckets and learning that basic comfort had a weight. Laundry alone could require 40 gallons or more, and that water had to be heated as well. Copper pots for heating water were enormous, and getting them to the proper temperature over wood fires required constant attention, because you could not turn a knob and walk away. Before central heating, managing fires was its own daily job. Mornings began with clearing ashes and building new fires for cooking and warmth, and the day's weather determined how much wood or coal needed to be ready. Cooking meant learning heat by feel, using high flames for boiling, steady heat for baking, and gentle coals for simmering, all without thermostats or temperature gauges. The seasonal work behind those fires could be even bigger. Summer often meant splitting and stacking wood for winter, sizing logs for kindling, cooking, and overnight heating, and the rhythm of chopping and stacking followed the seasons. Lighting also required maintenance. Oil lamps needed wick trimming to prevent smoke, glass chimneys had to be cleaned of soot, and reservoirs needed refilling without overfilling, because tipped lamps caused deadly fires. Catherine Esther Beecher, a domestic expert writing in 1868, recommended tools for lamp care, including a special filler with an upturned spout to prevent dripping and sharp scissors for trimming wicks. The work could be daily or weekly depending on use. An untrimmed wick produced dim, smoky light, dirty glass reduced brightness, and the air could become unpleasant fast. Some families hired professional lamp trimmers, which created an occupation that disappeared once electric lighting took over. Food safety required another set of skills. Before refrigeration, families relied on preservation methods like salting, smoking, drying, and canning, and each method demanded care and experience. Nicolas Appert, a French confectioner, pioneered canning in the 1790s. He reasoned that if the method worked for wine, it could work for food. The French Navy tested his methods successfully in 1806. At home, preservation could be risky without proper knowledge of temperatures and sterilization. Smoking meat required maintaining fires at precise temperatures for days. Drying demanded careful monitoring for mold and airflow. Salting required knowing which cuts could handle heavy salt loads. Even after hand-washing laundry, getting clothes dry enough to hang often meant using a mangle, called a wringer in America. It used two heavy rollers and a hand crank to squeeze water out of fabric, and it demanded strength and care. Feed fabric too fast and it bunched or tore. Use too little pressure and water stayed trapped. By 1900, many homes that considered themselves modern owned a wringer, but it still meant feeding every piece through the rollers one at a time, repeated load after load. Grinding was another routine modern kitchens now rarely require. Coffee beans and grain were often ground fresh by hand, using manual grinders that needed steady cranking and careful adjustment to achieve the right consistency. Stone mills for flour demanded even more effort, with families taking turns at the handle to process enough meal for daily bread. Sharp tools made every other job easier, so sharpening knives, scissors, and farm implements became a regular task. The steady scrape of blade against a whetstone was part of early morning preparation, and good tools could last decades if maintained. Floors required constant sweeping, usually with corn brooms first introduced in the early 1800s. The problem was that sweeping often just moved dust from floor to air to furniture and back again. Some housekeepers sprinkled damp tea leaves on carpets to settle dust, though the leaves could stain. Fresh-cut grass often worked better, and it left rugs looking brighter, but it required constant preparation and cleanup. Mechanical carpet sweepers improved things by capturing debris instead of redistributing it. The Bissell Company, founded in 1883 and later run by Anna Bissell after her husband's death, helped popularize these sweepers. But many families still relied on brooms and elbow grease well into the 20th century. Even lawn care demanded muscle. Push-reel mowers, heavy and human-powered, required constant forward momentum to cut. That turned mowing into serious work in summer heat. Hills became obstacles, thick grass required multiple passes, and the job rewarded stamina and technique more than speed. These reel mowers are seeing a small revival among environmentally conscious homeowners. But for earlier generations, they were not a lifestyle choice. They were simply the tool available. Taken together, these chores did more than keep a home running. They shaped family schedules, built practical skills, and created routines shared across households and neighborhoods. Modern appliances gave us time and convenience, but the older system demanded mastery because our grandparents did not just keep house, they learned how to run it, one difficult job at a time.